So in this video, we're going to be taking a look at the three gunas to start with. We've had a look at the three doshas, which are temperaments of the human characteristic and a combination of balances and imbalances of the elements within our constitution. However, it's important to know that there are three principal qualities inside of the entire manifestation of the universe called gunas, G-U-N-A-S, gunas. These gunas are the three forms in which all of reality can manifest in our known universe. So we're going to have a look at these today. So just keep in mind a dosha is a temperament, a balancing or an imbalancing of elements within our constitution as human beings. And the gunas are principal manifestations of how the universe can be, three forms in which the universe can manifest in its known states. If we take a look at, I'm going to just pull up a lovely picture here, at the image of Lord Shiva, the Adi Yogi, the first yogi, the Hindu god of destruction, and also the principal deity and the principal image that represents the yogis, the Hatha yogis specifically. Lord Shiva has over here some beautiful symbols that we can look at. And to illustrate in this image, his trident represents the three gunas, that he is the master of the three principles of the cosmic reality. These are Rajas, Sattva, and Tamas. They can also represent the three doshas as well. And there's many sacred trinities that exist within this imagery, this icon of the trident. Such as the Brahma, the creator of the universe, Vishnu, the preserver of the universe, and Shiva, the destroyer of the universe. So we can see that these three qualities are made quite manifest. There's other beautiful symbols here as well, which you can learn along the way, such as Lord Shiva sitting upon a tiger skin, which represents the overcoming of our animal instincts. The serpent around his neck represents that he has tamed his internal life force, his Kundalini Shakti. The fountain coming out of his head is the Himalaya, in the Himalayan mountains, represents the origin of the Ganga, the Ganges River. And so there's many beautiful images here. He sits in serene repose, the master of all yogis. So when we have a look at the three gunas, we could think of them as qualities of the universe. And we see these qualities as manifest in many sacred trinities throughout the world. In Hindu cosmology, we get the god Brahma, who is the creator of the universe. We get the god Vishnu. Remember that Hindus see all manifestations of the divine as one God force. The different deities are different manifestations, different aspects of the one supreme divine, different facets, we could say, such as the Christian Father, Son, and Holy Spirit are all aspects of one divine creator, the Trinity. Brahma is creator aspect. Vishnu is the preserver or sustainer of the universe. And he has taken on many forms, many incarnations, for example, Lord Krishna. And Shiva is the destroyer of the universe. So these three principles are important to understand in that Brahma, the creator aspect of the universe, this is the principle of the universe that generates, creates, and brings into beginning, right? So we could think of this as like the seed coming into fruition, coming into growth, the sunrise, the dawn, the Big Bang, the beginning of it all. And Brahma is the principle of the divine that holds that all together, that he is in charge of creating and generating. Vishnu is the principle of the universe that sustains everything. So once the plant has grown, it's Vishnu who preserves its life, okay, that holds it in the life force space and sustains all of life, keeps it all held together. And it is Shiva in his aspect of destroyer who then brings the plant to its end so that it can decompose, the elements can return to its origin, and that there can therefore be new life, new creation again. Remember that this is not linear. It's not beginning, middle, and end. It is cyclical. Very, very important to understand the cyclical nature of these ancient cosmologies. They always are in a spiral. Okay, they're always in a spiral. So we could, it was Yogi Bhajan who said that God is the three aspects of G, standing for generator, O standing for organizer, and D standing for destroyer or the decomposer, that which decomposes but also destructs, okay? So decompose, deconstruct, okay? All right, so this is not bad. We can't think of the destroyer or the decomposer or the deconstructor as bad, all right? Because that would come from a mindset or a culture that worships eternal youth, eternal beauty, eternal life. There is absolutely nothing in this universe that is currently not on its way to decomposing, destruction, death. Okay, all of these words starting with a D, interestingly enough. So birth, here at the beginning, birth, we could say, birth, life, and death. And then after that, because it's cyclical, comes rebirth. So God, in the form of the sacred Trinity, which is not only owned by the Christian religion, it is a very, very ancient construct. It is a very ancient model. We see it in Babylon, we see it in ancient Greece, we see it in Rome, we see it in Africa, we see it in Egypt. God, in the form of that which generates, that which organizes or sustains, and that which destroys or decomposes or deconstructs in order for the new things to take place in our world. All right, so it is never just the end. It is always a beginning and a middle and an end and a new beginning and a middle and an end. And so the cycle of the universe must always go around and around and around. In Egyptian mythos, for instance, we could see Brahma, or the creator force, as represented by, or the sacred trinity, should I say, of Osiris, Isis, and Horus. We can see it in many, many aspects: Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. So these are principles of the universe, and no one in the ancient world ever dreamed that they are three different beings per se. These different beings are allegories. They're symbols of principles of the universe that are in charge of birth, life, death, and rebirth. So now that we understand a little bit deeper into this aspect, we must have a look at the gunas. So the gunas are very closely related to these three principles. The first guna that we want to learn about is rajas. All right, rajas Rajas is everything in the universe that is in motion, that is energetic, that is frenetic, that is fiery, that is sometimes even frantic, okay? It is sexual, it is passionate, it is anger, it is it is motivation. All right, it is hot, it is, okay, so we can see that there's a lot of these kinds of qualities, because remember that these three gunas have to represent everything in the universe, all things. And so we give it, it is a positive, not, I don't mean good, I mean positive as in if we're looking at the polarity of a magnet, it is positive in its current. And by that nature, it is therefore, it is masculine because we give the masculine polarity to everything that is externalizing. It is masculine, it is electric, it is the proton, it is representative of yang. All right, so now we get a little bit more of an understanding here. Do not confuse male and female with masculine and feminine. Male and female are genders of the human body, of animal bodies. Masculine and feminine are energetic principles, okay, polarity. We must understand the difference between the two. You can get feminine males, you can get masculine females. It has nothing to do with genitalia, it's an energetic current. All right, then the next one that we want to look at to understand is, and these colors that I'm giving are really arbitrary colors. They're not directly related in any way. The next one that we want to look at down here is tamas. Okay, this is the next guna that we want to look at. And I'm putting it at the bottom because there's one that's going to go in the middle. So tamas is everything that is still, everything that is inertia, anything that is dormant, anything that is decaying, dying, death. It's cold by nature, it is passive, whereas in rajas is active. I don't think I put that in there, but it's active. It is very often, it is still, oh, we've got that. It is silent, whereas in rajastic energy is very, you know, noisy. And in the polarities, we could say negative, okay? I don't mean bad, I mean negative, as in, like, if we think of electrical current, we have positive and negative current. It is negative in that sense. And therefore, it is feminine, it is magnetic, it is the electron, and it is yin in nature. Again, this has nothing to do with gender. So that doesn't mean that women are tamastic and men are rajastic, although there might be correlations. It is the energetic force. And then in the middle, we can pick a neutral color. I'm going to pick blue just so you can see it. In the middle, we have the third force of the universe, which is what we call sattva. Some people spell it with a W-A, sattva, still pronounced the same, sattva or sattva. Okay. This is neutral, it is harmonious. It is peaceful. It is, it is spiritual. It is enlightened. Okay. It is all of these kind of higher spiritual natures, and therefore it is yogic, it is meditative, it is a mediative. Okay, so it's that middle space. It is what Buddha would have called the middle way. It means not too much extreme, not too much deprivation. Okay, so Buddha would have put, okay, let me just finish this off before I go on another tangent. So it is therefore, it is neutral. It doesn't have gender. Okay, it is the neutron. It's that middle space. It is sattvic. So Buddha would have called this rajasic energy, he would have called it excess, okay, hedonism. And it in the story of Buddha, it is representative of when he lived in the palace and he had, you know, he had everything. He had all the food, all the beautiful women. He could have as much as he wanted. And he did not find enlightenment there. The Tamas could represent the opposite side of Buddha's energy or journey, should I say, deprivation. Deprivation, what we call asceticism. Okay. Asceticism. He went and he starved himself and he deprived himself, and he still didn't find any enlightenment there. It was in the middle way, in the sattvic way, that he found enlightenment. And so a lot of Buddhism places emphasis on what we call the middle way. It is in between two extremes, not too much excess, not too much deprivation. So a simple analogy of that would say, don't eat the whole tub of ice cream just because it's nice, you'll get a tummy ache, but also don't deny or deprive yourself of ice cream as well. It is just enough, in the middle way, just enough of the joy, but not too much, not too little. Okay, so that's a silly little analogy, but the middle way, according to Buddhists, should be applied in every aspect of life. The yogis are always striving for sattvic, 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 sattvic. In everything we do, the yogis are looking to work in a sattvic space. So sattvic activities are things like, you know, meditation and sattvic eating, certain foods, which we'll look at in the Ayurveda. So anything that is rajasic are activities that are too much in excess. Now, it is important to know that we do need a little bit of all of these, okay? The universe is comprised of all three, but the problem is some people are living too much in one or the other. So if we have too much rajas, for example, it can lead to anger, anxiety, okay, burnout. So that means we're doing too many rajasic activities. We're on the move too much. This is, I call it the accelerator. Okay, your foot is only on the accelerator. What will happen if your foot stays on the accelerator of a car? You're only putting your foot on the accelerator of the car and you just keep going. Just put the foot. What's going to happen? You'll crash. Exactly. You're going to go so fast that you'll crash. So we cannot live just a rajasic lifestyle, which means that we cannot just be go, 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 harder, faster, stronger, better, constantly going, because we'll burn out. And we see this in the anxiety of our world, in the anger, in the frustrations of people trying to do too much. Why do they do this? Hedonism, greed, too much, want excess, want too many things, too many objects, too many possessions, must get bigger, faster, upgrade, 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 okay? So the world that we live in at the moment is extremely rajastic. So glad to see that the whiteboard is fixed now. Zoom has done some work here. All right, so understand rajas and understand where in the nature of this world, and maybe in your life, rajas, there's too much rajas. For example, people who are addicted to sex, it's too much rajastic energy. People who are addicted to constantly overexerting their physical limits, it's rajastic energy. It leads to all of these things. Now, with the, I want to just neaten this up here for you. With the tamas, well, not good. Tamas is not good either. Too much of it. Okay, so tamas says, yes, we've got to slow down. Sometimes we need to go sit under a tree or take a nap. But too much tamas means that someone is not motivated. They can't get out of bed. They can't get themselves to do anything, which would be rajastic qualities. Because remember, we think of rajas as the form of the creator of the universe. So rajas leads us to create. It leads us to accomplish. It leads us to achieve, which we need. But we cannot become addicted to that. We cannot overdo it. The same as tamas. Tamas, if we have too much of the tamastic energy, we don't get anything done. We don't exercise. We don't start a new project. We can hardly finish our day at work without wanting to take a sleep. And in our modern society, this leads to problems of depression. Okay, depression and lethargy, lack of motivation. Okay, it is the brakes. So that's good. We need accelerator and we need brakes. We need them both to drive the car, don't we? Because if you just press accelerator, you're going to crash. But what happens if you sit in your car, you start the car and you hold your foot on the brakes? You're not going anywhere. You just start the car and you put your foot on the brake. You're not going anywhere. So the journey of life requires a balance of acceleration and brake, acceleration and brake. This is why we use things like yoga nidra so much, because it helps to decrease the speed at which people in our modern world are flying. It's a brakes mechanism. But we also would use a rajastic yoga, such as vinyasa yoga, to boost the tamastic energy, perhaps. So we can think that when it's very, very hot in summer, for example, that there's lots of rajas in the air, lots of heat, lots of frenetic energy, lots of passion, lots of excess. Okay, think of the summertime. And so when that excess rajas is around, we need to cool it down. We need to bring it down. So we could think of this absolutely, without a doubt, in the form of yin and yang. Okay, we must just think of the balance over here. These are just different terminologies for like this yin and yang. So if there's too much rajas around, especially in the time of summer, which is when it's predominant and everyone's externalizing, going, things are happening, we need to bring some coolness, some passivity, some calming, some slowing down into that space. So during summer, even though we might feel like a good vinyasa, and that's not a problem, but more cooling yogas, more calming yogas, long-held postures, what people would call yin yoga, more yoga nidra, okay, to just help to cool that down. And even within our diet, to have more cooling substances, like to drink more cool water, to have cucumbers, to have colder salads, mint and menthol, those kind of herbs that cool us down, cool the tempers, taking cold showers, things like that, to just soften and anchor, cool the heat of the rajastic energy. But in winter, we've got all this tamastic energy. So in winter, we're cold and we're passive, and we just want to lie under the blankets all day and watch a movie, and we don't want to get out the house, and we don't want to go to the gym, and we don't want to do anything. We just want to get home and sleep. So we need then a little bit more of the rajas. We need a little bit more of the electric, the activating stuff. And so it's very, very normal for us in winter to want to eat a lot, because that is a very tamastic process. It leads to extra heaviness. And so what we should be doing in winter is, yes, feeding the body as it needs to, but we want to bring the energy of the rajas in. So we include hot, spicy things into our food. When I say spicy, I don't necessarily mean burny, although it can be, like chilies. But rajastic foods such as ginger, which can stimulate us, kind of cinnamons and those kind of warming spices, turmeric and things like that, drinking warm teas. But to do this in a good and healthy way to help us. The desire in winter might be to just do like long, deep yoga nidras and yin yoga, because the body feels so heavy, it feels so tired. But this is really when we can be kicking in to more activating work, some vinyasa, or even just some dynamic kriya, some dynamic kapalabhatis and breaths of fire to stimulate that heating effect. Whereas in the hotter months, or for people with more rajas in them, regardless of the month, they should be doing more cooling, more soothing breath. So yes, these are seasonally related, but they are also temperamental, okay, related. So we could think of rajas as being very close to that that pitta dosha that we learned about, that excess fire in the temperament. We could think of tamas as being very similar to the kapha dosha, very sedatory, okay, very heavy. But what we are looking for is this middle way. And so sattva is increased in the body mainly through things that are in between the extremes. And sattvic food and sattvic diet is really what yogis are striving to achieve. So tamastic food, for example, is anything that is decaying or dead. So decaying or dead, let's take a look at what are some tamastic foods. All right, meat, number one. Meat is dead. There is no energetic benefit in meat. There is zero prana in meat. People are obsessed with protein in their diets, but there is plenty protein in a healthy vegetarian diet. Meat contributes nothing to the system. The only thing that meat might contribute to the system might be the B12s, but that's it. There is nothing that meat contributes to the system. There is no vitamins inside of meat. There's nothing there except for protein and fats. And we can get protein and fats from a healthy plant-based diet. Note that I say healthy plant-based diet. Just because you're eating lots of processed vegetarian food doesn't mean that you are a healthy vegetarian. You can get some very unhealthy vegetarians. Many vegetarians are very unhealthy, in fact, because it's supposed to be a plant-based eating approach, not a processed food or a junk food eating approach, which can be very easy for vegetarians to do. So foods that are tamastic are meat because it's dead. There is no life force in meat. Alcohol is traditionally seen as tamastic. It is decayed. Even vinegars are seen as tamastic. Anything that is rotten, dead, or decayed. So for instance, traditionally yogis would not even venture to eat dried fruit, for example, because yes, it's just high in sugar, but it doesn't, we're looking at the pranic perspectives here. We're not looking at chemical perspective only of a food or a plant, because if chemicals was where we got our nutrition, then we could all just live on tablets, okay? But we cannot just live on tablets. We cannot just take vitamin C for breakfast and vitamin D for lunch and some vitamin A for supper within tablets, because that's not where our life force energy comes from. This is the split where science hasn't yet caught up, modern science, to the ancient science. The ancient science says, yes, there's vitamins, there's minerals, there's proteins, all of that in all of our foods, but where's the prana coming from? The life force energy coming from. So yogis were more interested, not so much in vitamins and minerals and constitutions like that, because they would get it regardless in those days, especially, food grew from healthy soil and healthy air and healthy water, didn't have chemical additives and things that we have to worry about now. But they were saying, what can I consume that has the highest level of prana in it, the highest level of energy? Because we can think of yogis as being pranic fiends. We want as much prana as we can. So if a yogi has a choice between a piece of biltong and an apple, they will go for the apple because it has more life force energy in. But if they had to choose between a dried apple and a fresh apple, they would take the fresh apple because it has more prana in it. So how do we know when it has more prana in? Because it is closest to its life source. It is the closest to the sun. It is the closest to that time when it has the fullest amount of prana in it. If you had to put a piece of biltong down on the floor, and just look at it externally, there's nothing alive in it anymore. There's nothing living in that. It's dead. In fact, it still carries within it the energy of death, the fear of the animal, the panic of the animal is locked inside of the cell of that meat. So it is scientific fact that whenever something is dying or gets killed, at the moment of death, it releases a huge amount of adrenaline into the body, obviously through the process of fear. This doesn't even have anything to do with how animals nowadays, especially, are kept for months, sometimes years, in these awful living conditions. And so the flesh of that meat constantly is exerted, full of adrenaline, because the animals are panicked, they're scared, they're not sure where they are. And that's not even to include all the hormonal additives and things like that because of the living conditions and the desire to make them grow bigger and faster for human greed. And it's not for human health. This is purely for greed, okay? You do not need to eat a chicken a day to be healthy. This is greed. This is not how our ancestors lived, despite what people might like to tell you. The adrenaline that's pumped from those living bodies into the flesh is then consumed by the human consumer. And adrenaline is toxic when ingested into the body. It is extremely poisonous. And so when we are consuming adrenaline from the outside, not only our own body's adrenaline, but now we consume more through the eating of flesh foods, can we see why there is major boost of anxiety and depression and anger and all of these things, not even including the hormonal additives of meat, okay? But just the energetic of fear of that death process that goes into the meat. Now, plants do not have the same nervous system as an animal. So we know through scientific studies that even after a plant has been harvested, it can continue to grow. If you take a rose from the ground and you cut it and you put it in a vase, it will continue to sprout. It will continue to flourish and to grow. It might even begin to make some roots coming out of it. So there is constantly a life force, energy inside. If you take an onion from the shop and you just put it on your counter and you leave it there, it will start to sprout because there is still life force in it, even when it is removed from the earth. But if you had to take an animal and cut its head off, it's not going to continue to grow. It's not going to continue to flourish. It is dead in that time, in that process. So when we take in living food, we contribute to the life force energy of our body. And this is what the yogis were always striving to do, to consume the living food that is as close to the life source as possible. There were some exceptions here that still contain a lot of living life force prana, such as rice, lentils, and dals and dried beans were seen to still contain a lot of that life force. Why? Because very easy. If you take lentils and you wet them and you put them in the sun, if you do the same with beans, if you do the same with grains and legumes, you wet them, you put them in a bottle in the warmth, they will start to sprout and they will start to grow. So they still contain life force energy in them, the potential for life force. But if you take a chicken carcass and you leave it in the same environment, what will happen? A new chicken's not going to grow out of it. It's not going to grow to life. It will decay. It will decompose. It will get maggoty and wormy and smelly and disgusting. And that's why it is tamastic in its nature. Whereas in the seed and the life force energy that can grow is sattvic. It is harmonious. It is spiritual. It strives to grow towards light. It is yogic. We see it as yogic. It brings life force to us, but not in the sense of the freneticness of rajas. Okay, sattva is seen as that which sustains. So maybe a little bit of rajas, but we need a little bit of rajas in order to live our lives, especially those of us who are not ascetics, not living in the mountains. We need to get through our jobs. We need to accomplish. We need to succeed. We're not demonizing rajas. We're just saying any of rajas or anything of tamas in excess is not healthy, is not going to be good for us. Okay, so that's a little bit of an example of that. Now I want to show you some cute little pictures that I found on the internet to kind of display some of these. So here is an example of the quote unquote yin yang of the yogic tradition, okay? These three forces comprising the universe. Here's a lovely example of these three forces in little caricatures. So sattva, this monk is sitting here in meditation. He is doing a sattvic practice. It's balanced, harmonious, positive, peaceful, and clear. There is clarity there. Here's a little rajastic man. He's fretting, he's stressing, he's worrying, he's panicking. It's movement, activity, energy, excitement, passion. Again, not bad qualities, but too much of them could lead to an overexciting of the senses. And if we live a rajastic lifestyle and if we consume rajastic foods, when you sit down in meditation, you will have a rajastic experience. Your mind is going to be so frenetic and it cannot stop and it cannot, your thoughts are all over the show. So the yogi said, we've got a way of tricking the mind into becoming calm and clear for our meditative practices. And that's by eating sattvic food, living sattvic life. And that's by doing everything in a calm and harmonious way. Our talking, our speech, our movement, it should all be harmonious. Tamas, here's a nice picture of Homer Simpson. You know, he's got beer everywhere and he's eating some sugary donut, which is also considered tamastic. Processed foods, refined flours, breads, tamastic. There's no life force in them. And he's just like feeling bloated and heavy. And this is inertia, inactivity, it's negative, it's apathy, it doesn't care, it's dullness. And very often rajas and tamas have addictive natures as well, because they are both leading to attachment. Sattva is non-attachment, therefore there can be no addiction there. Rajastic temperament tends to be addicted to caffeine and to stimulants, things that boost the energy levels, Red Bulls, coffees, maybe cocaine, uppers, drugs like that. And tamastic needs, they want things that bring them right down. So they want to smoke a lot of weed, marijuana, or drinking alcohol, or any sleeping tablets and things that would bring the energy down. Rajas, also with uppers, cigarettes are very rajastic. Okay, stimulating. Cigarettes are stimulants, they're not relaxants. The relaxing nature of a cigarette comes from the fact that you're actually taking 5 to 10 minutes out of your day to go sit down. It's not the cigarettes. Cigarettes are stimulating. So can you see how those two could lead to all sorts of addictions? Whereas in sattva, there's no attachment. Okay, here's another little image here, the three qualities, sattva, purity and silence. Okay. Sattvic silence is very nice. When we go on retreat, we spend time in silence. But rajas, passion and restlessness, can never be happy, can never be still. Tamas, inertia and dullness. Okay, here's another example of some traits of tamas, the dull mind. It hides awareness, sluggish, lazy, prone to depression. Your fear interprets your experience. Your fear interprets your experience. The upside of tamas is that it allows one to rest, and it also prevents self-inquiry. We don't just want to have the energy to sit down and meditate or to do a course or to study. It's just easier to sit in front of the TV and do nothing. Let's look at rajas. It is the extroverted mind. Also hides awareness from us. It's anger, anxiety, frustration, aggression, boredom are common. They want more, need more, bigger, bigger, more exciting, more exciting. I'm so bored. I must be stimulated. Okay, it's all about stimulation. Very big problem in our current society. Whereas in tamas, the fear interprets the experience. Rajas, here the desires interpret our experience. On a positive note, it's a great motivator to accomplish things in the world. And it also hinders self-inquiry. Why? Because unlike tamas, which says, oh, I couldn't be bothered, I'm just going to go and watch some movies all day, every day. I'm just going to go sleep. Rajas says, I don't have time for that. I've got to do, I've got hobbies, I've got sports, I've got friends, I've got social life, blah, 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 blah. Activity. So I also cannot study, I cannot inquire, I cannot meditate, I cannot go within, I cannot be still. Sattva is where it's at for the yogi. Sattva is the calm mind. It reveals awareness. It illuminates us. Okay, it shows us because it's present. Tamas is very much often got to do with hanging on to the past, hence depression. Rajas focuses its awareness on the future, hence anxiety. Sattva is very present. Okay, and therefore in the present it illuminates. It reveals awareness. The mind is present, wise, happy, and free of desire. Truth interprets the experience. It allows for us to properly discriminate, properly understand, properly be aware, and it facilitates self-inquiry. Okay, here's a few more qualities that you can look at, that you can go through, right? And yes, I think that's good. All right, so this is an understanding of the three gunas, and very, very important for our yogic understanding of life, of ourselves, and of the principles of nature, and of the life force around us. So we could definitely pull back from all of this and just go, the one is accelerator and the one is brakes. The one is too much, the one is too little. I think I like I like an analogy that one of the students told me once. It's the Goldilocks approach. Okay, looking for the one that's just right. Yeah, not too hot, not too cold, not too big, not too small. The one that is just right. And if we can find that in everything in our life, for example, am I sleeping too much? Am I sleeping too little? Am I just getting enough? That is sattvic living. If you're sleeping too little, it's rajasic. If you're sleeping too much, it's tamastic. Am I eating too much food? You know, whereas in perhaps if you're eating too much food or too little food, you know, excess and deprivation, or are you eating just right? Is there too much chilies in here, which could lead to ulcers and burnout? Or is there just enough to give me that little bit of extra zing, a little bit of extra zest and oomph? So every single part of our life we can think of as the balancing of polarities. And usually the magical ingredient is the Goldilocks ingredient. It's in the middle. it's just right. And these three principles we can see right down to the very atom of the universe, the basic fundamental quality of all life that we see reflected in our studies in school is the electron and the proton and the neutron, right? So let's just quickly last little bit here. So we see this electrons represent, that part that is electric, and the neutron is the neutral, and the proton is the positive. So these forces come right down. These three fundamental gunas come down to the very smallest part of the entire universal existence. I hope this has sparked some interest for you, some stimulation, and I'm looking forward to our next video together.